part of if the question is why is Bitcoin rallying, the answer is every other idea for investment seems like a pretty bad idea right now, Scott. And everybody that understands Bitcoin really well, that also had their money in altcoins or stable coins or other investment ideas, or they're if you're a crypto VC or you're a stable coin holder or you're a whatever, you're thinking, well, that is more risky than I thought it was, and it didn't work out as well as I thought it would. And so what do I know that I can run to in times of stress? It's a mainstream crisis of confidence in a 500 plus trillion-dollar economy, a micro crisis of confidence in the crypto economy. A year ago, all these things were kind of under the surface, and they've all kind of come to the surface in the last 12 months, and every one of them's been brutal. What's happened in the last 2 weeks? Massive Bitcoin rally. Why? Well, I think that if you just put all that into your synthesizer and you say, what what do I trust? What am I willing to invest my money in? Where's my safe haven with all this anxiety? And the safe haven is simple. It's Bitcoin the asset, Bitcoin the network, right? Those two things are your safe haven. Bitcoin, the asset, is the safest currency, the safest investment asset I can find because it lacks counterparty risk, and because all of the 11 meltdowns I mentioned in the crypto market, all 11 of those catastrophes have not stopped Bitcoin from functioning. It has survived them all. And so I sense in the crypto community, Scott, a grudging respect growing over the past 12 months for Bitcoin. If you roll the clock back 12 months ago, there are a lot of people that just, the trolls said, oh, it's boomer coin. I'm not going to say who, but many people said it will be irrelevant in 5 years. It's the last thing, it's aged tech. And I think that what they realized is that you know when there's infinite money and the regulators are not active and the politicians aren't noticing you, then you can have a lot of fragile structures. We had a lot of fragile, overly complicated Rube Goldberg devices in the crypto industry, Terra Luna being the most famous example, that they kind of flew, and then as soon as there's pressure on them, you just realize they're unstable. They're too complicated. Maybe they're good ideas, but they're implemented in an unstable fashion or irresponsible fashion or non-compliant fashion. And when scrutiny comes to them, they're going to collapse. And all of the bankrupt entities, right? BlockFi was a good idea, but it was unstable. Celsius, unstable, right? All these things unstable. They all collapsed. But in their defense, would be all fractional reserve banks, right? That if you're collecting $100 billion in deposits that you have to deliver on 1 day notice back to the depositor, or 1 hour notice, and if you're turning around and lending it out for 30 years and a fixed mortgage rate security, that was a bit fragile. And of course, if you went and you bought bonds with it that had a 10 or 20-year duration, that was also unstable. So what we're seeing is a lot of overly complicated schemes to generate yield collapse under this kind of stress. So I think people realize maybe Bitcoin's not such a bad idea, like no yield and no counterparty risk. And Satoshi's not around to embarrass us, right? I mean, there's a point to this, which is if there's an attack, if there's attack surface, whatever it is, whether it's a founding team, whether it's an entity, whether it's a corporation, whether it's a yield protocol, all these attack surfaces, if they can be attacked, they will be attacked. So I think that part of, if the question is why is Bitcoin rallying, the answer is every other idea for investment seems like a pretty bad idea. If you're a crypto VC or you're a stable coin holder or you're a whatever, you're thinking, well, that is more risky than I thought it was, and it didn't work out as well as I thought it would. And so what do I know that I can run to in times of stress? It's Bitcoin. If if the stable coins, when BUSD is not available to me, and when Silvergate and Signature are not available to me, and I need to settle on the weekend, right? I'm driven from those stable coins into Tether, but then if I start to get worried about Tether, what am I going to do? I'm going to go back to old school, and old school was Bitcoin was the unit of account in the crypto economy, right? Tether and stablecoins made the U.S. dollar the unit of account in the crypto economy. But I think we see people reverting back to Bitcoin as unit of account. Bitcoin is the reserve asset of the crypto ecosystem. Bitcoin is the safe haven asset, and this is being pounded into people's heads. So some of the money is the crypto assets that are looking for the safe haven, and as you get anxiety about everywhere else, you kind of run to Bitcoin because Bitcoin's not going to screw you. Bitcoin doesn't have a management team to take advantage of you, and it doesn't matter who you are. Don't trust me. You shouldn't trust any politician or any business person anywhere in the world. You should trust a protocol. The one thing I'm sure of, reasonably sure of, and one BTC equals one BTC, and I can run my node. So the protocols are actually people got bored with Bitcoin and in the crypto world, and they started thinking it's boring. I missed the boat, and they stopped appreciating the beauty and the simplicity of a protocol. And now I think they're rediscovering it, and I think you see that with the crypto entrepreneurs. I think you see that with Cointelegraph. I think you see that with CoinDesk. I think you see that on the cover of Bloomberg Crypto. I think you see that in the mainstream media. There's a grudging respect and an acknowledgement that maybe Bitcoin is not such a bad idea. Maybe Bitcoin is not boomer coin. Maybe Bitcoin is a good idea. And so that's part of it. I think the other part of it is Bitcoin, the network. If I can't settle on these stablecoin networks, if I can't settle with the crypto exchanges, if I can't settle with Silvergate and Signature, and if I get my banking access cut off, then the one settlement network that I can trust is the Bitcoin settlement network. So the value of Bitcoin as a settlement network has been undervalued. People undervalue the idea that I can move $1 billion on Saturday from point A to point B without asking permission. And maybe you see how I just basically said that everybody that needs to give you permission seems to be hostile in a world where every single regulator and every bank, everything seems hostile. It's a hostile, dangerous world. You start thinking that maybe the ability to use the Bitcoin network is been undervalued. So I think that that's rising to prominence. I think the third thing that's driving enthusiasm is Bitcoin applications. Just like we saw ordinals and Taproot and the like. It's like, well, maybe I can build stuff on. Maybe Bitcoin is a network that I can do DeFi on. I can do NFT on. I can do settlements on. I can build applications on. If I don't trust everything else, maybe I return back to this idea that Bitcoin has an application future. And then I think the fourth observation is the Lightning Network is really exploding all around us. I think there's an explosion in entrepreneurs. There's so many cool applications that are going on the Lightning Network. MicroStrategy is hosting a Lightning for Corporations conference. It'll be the first one in the history of the world. We're going to have thousands and thousands of global 5,000 companies and IT people, and they're looking at how do I build Lightning into my corporate apps. And I think that if you look at the subtext here is, if everybody's afraid of everything else, but I've shown you a way to move money over IP in a open, permissionless fashion that's ethically sound, that's that's economically sound, and that's technically sound, then again, I've invented money over IP. TCP/IP changed the world, voice over IP changed the world, money over IP will change the world. There's been this struggle about what is money over IP. Well, it's got to be an open, permissionless protocol. You can't own it. If Linus Torvalds had owned a 20% royalty on Linux, it wouldn't be Linux. Stephen Jobs declared war on Flash, and he elevated HTML, HTML5, and he elevated other open protocols because he understood that you can't assert proprietary ownership on this stuff. In fact, it was, I'm old enough to remember when DECnet, and Token Ring were the networking protocols, and they were owned by Digital and IBM, and they went to zero. And TCP/IP, which was thought to be, this technically complicated protocol that was too hard to use and not business friendly and the like. It destroyed everybody because it was open information. It was information on IP, and eventually voice over IP did the same thing. Initially, it was college girls talking to their boyfriends on Skype, and then it turned the world upside down. And I think money over IP is the same thing. So I think that would be my framing of everything going on right now. Bitcoin is an idea whose time has come. I don't think, by the way, Scott, I don't think that the Bitcoin rally is due to mainstream adoption of Bitcoin. I think the Bitcoin
I agree.
rally is due to crypto adoption of Bitcoin.
Agree.
This is a catalytic event, Scott, that has rallied the entire crypto community behind Bitcoin because we were at war with each other a year ago. I mean, Sam Bankman-Fried and all of the other crypto ideas, of which there were probably 25 of them, they were frenemies and they could not agree. And I think that when FTX melted down, I think it was a come to Jesus moment for crypto people because they realized that we really have to put our differences aside and agree on one thing, which is Bitcoin is good. Right? And if you want to boil this down, like my view is Bitcoin is open, permissionless, digital commodity. Nobody controls it. Everybody has to pay their way into it. If I want to have Bitcoin, I put $4.2 billion of real cash into Bitcoin. And if I say the wrong thing, the maximalists shred me tomorrow. And I know that I don't have any control whatsoever over the protocol, even though I paid $4 billion to buy into it, because it's everybody's property. And so Bitcoin is this common thing we can all agree on and nobody owns. Everything else, they're all good ideas, Scott. Like digital tokens, Tom Brady token, Katy Perry token, NFTs, they're good ideas. 24/7, 365 trading is a good idea. Being able to launch 100,000 securities a million times cheaper than the 20th century way, it's a good idea. DeFi, a good idea. They're all good ideas, but they all have risk and complication to them. And for the most part, it's like companies with equities, and you need to build a company, build the equity, and fight the regulatory wars and the political wars. And so I'm not going to endorse any company, no matter how good an idea it is. I'm not going to, like Bitcoin miner. You're a Bitcoin miner, but is it a good idea? Maybe it is until the regulators shut it down in China. It's like they all have risk. And so I think when the crypto community says, hey, we have a lot of good ideas, but there is one great, insanely great idea that we all have to support. And that one insanely great idea is Bitcoin. And if we make Bitcoin the reserve asset of the crypto ecosystem, and if we focus on what made the Bitcoin network anti-fragile, then at least we've found our moral bearings, our economic bearings, and we found our technical bearings. And you can build a world based upon that foundation. But if you run away from that foundation, you're building on a bed of sand, and everything is fragile and it all crumbles under your feet. And
Totally
so
agree.
And so that's why Bitcoin is rallying right now. And we're still early days with regard to the mainstream community getting it. I'll make one more point now and I'll shut up. My last point is we're still 0.1%, 0.2% of the mainstream finance world. And so everything going on in the crypto ecosystem and the Bitcoin world is really just a sideshow. What happens in the, this mainstream opera, the regulators, the politicians, they're going to fight and they're going to take lots of action to stabilize that. That's above my pay grade. We're not going to fix that. There's a lot of complicated stuff that's going to go on. What you can expect is this is just taking us from 0.1% to 0.2% to 0.4% to eventually 1%. And when Bitcoin is trading at 10x where it is right now, we're going to be like a 1%, and the main show is still going to be conventional banking. And so that's why I would say if you've got some energy in life, why do I have laser eyes? The laser eyes is save what you can save, fix what you can do what you can do. We can make Bitcoin successful and we can build an ethical, sound, rational set of applications and and a framework around it.